There are seasons in life that taste like silence. You pray, but there's no echo. You search, but doors remain shut. You wonder if heaven has gone quiet. But what if this silence isn't absence but preparation? You are not being ignored. You are being shaped. God never wastes a moment. While we demand speed, he works in depth. You want answers, he gives you growth. You want rescue, he gives you roots. This season, this ache, this slow burning fire inside of you, it's not meaningless. It's the signature of a master sculptor who is carving you into something eternal. The hammer and chisel don't feel like love, but they are. Every broken expectation, every unanswered prayer, every lonely night is not the end of your story. It's part of the architecture of something greater. Do you remember that the seed must split before it grows, that it must lie in dark, unseen places before it ever touches the sun? You may feel buried, but you are planted. Delay is not denial. The doors that don't open are not insults. They are instructions. Sometimes God withholds not to break you, but to build you into someone who can carry the weight of what you're asking for. The pain that presses on you today may tomorrow become the power that pours out of you. What hurts you now may one day heal others. The sorrow you carry now may be the song someone else needs to survive. God sees the whole. We see only fragments. We measure by comfort. He measures by character. We want escape. He wants transformation. You weren't made merely for the valleys you're walking through. There's more. There is glory coded into your DNA, not because of who you are, but because of whose you are. So don't lose heart. Don't let the silence convince you that nothing is happening. Sometimes God's loudest work is done in whispers. Sometimes the miracle is in the making long before it is seen. You are being prepared, not punished, not forgotten, but forged, because God is preparing you for something far, far greater. There is a hidden craftsmanship to suffering that often goes unnoticed by the hurried soul. In our desperation for immediate answers and quick deliverance, we overlook the subtle hand of the sculptor, the one who, without noise, without spectacle, and often without our understanding, is shaping the eternal from the temporary. The sculptor does not always announce his work. He does not always explain the blows of his hammer or the scraping of his chisel. He does not call attention to the dust falling from our lives, the pieces of pride, illusion, and self-sufficiency that he quietly chips away. He simply works faithfully, patiently, relentlessly shaping what we cannot yet see and what we are too fragile to yet carry. We mistake stillness for absence, but it is in the stillness that the sculptor is most focused. When nothing seems to be moving, he is refining the inner architecture of our soul. When prayers are met with silence, it is not because he has turned his face away, it is because he's drawing near with the kind of closeness that does not require words. Like a potter who leans in studying the clay, his silence is not distance but intensity. He is absorbed in his work. We cry out for relief, and he answers with refinement. We ask him to remove the pain, and he uses it as a tool. Every disappointment, every detour, every unanswered prayer becomes part of the shaping. He knows the final form. We only know the ache. But the ache is not wasted. It is the proof that something holy is being done in us, even when it feels like everything is coming undone. There is a kind of mercy that only comes through the hammer and chisel. It is the mercy of transformation. If God allowed us to remain untouched, if he never interfered, never broke through our carefully managed lives, then we would remain small, unshaped, and fragile. But he loves us too much to leave us unformed. He breaks the stone not to destroy, but to reveal what is within. We often want to skip the carving and leap straight to completion. We want to be the finished statue, polished and displayed, but the sculptor does not work on demand. He works on design. And design takes time. It takes silence. It takes surrender. It requires our willingness to be still under his hand, even when we do not understand his methods. Sometimes the pain we experience is not about what is being taken away, but about what is being revealed. We carry false selves, masks, identities built from fear, comparison, or past wounds. The sculptor sees all of it. He sees the lies we believed about ourselves, the habits we formed in panic, the walls we built to survive. And he begins to strip it all away, not out of cruelty, but out of love, because he knows who we really are, and he will not rest until that true self is uncovered. You may feel forgotten. You may feel like nothing is happening. You may even be tempted to believe that God has abandoned the work he began in you, but the truth is more intimate and more sacred than you can imagine. You are not forgotten, you are focused upon. The sculptor has not walked away. He is simply working in places too deep for the eye to see. Art takes time, and you, beloved, are not a quick sketch. You are a masterpiece, not of your own making, but of his. And masterpieces are made through pressure, through patience, and through pain. They are made through silence, long, sacred silences where heaven seems closed, and yet God is more present than ever before. Do not rush the process. Do not curse the chisel. The pain you feel today may be the exact place where your future strength is being born. You are not being dismantled, you are being defined, not by what you are losing, but by what is being revealed. The stone was never meant to remain stone. It was meant to become something beautiful, something eternal, something holy. The sculptor is still at work, and he works best in silence. We are quick to interpret pain as rejection, suffering as abandonment, and hardship as punishment. The moment discomfort arrives, we look to the sky and ask, what did I do wrong? As if every affliction were a sign of divine displeasure. But the truth is more mysterious and more intimate. Pain is not always the result of disobedience. More often than we know, pain is preparation, not punishment. There is a sacredness to the trials that carve into our lives. They arrive uninvited, unannounced, often unwelcome, yet they carry within them the tools of heaven. They are not instruments of wrath, but of refinement. Like a fire that does not consume but purifies, suffering is allowed not to destroy us, but to reshape us. It does not mark the absence of God's love, rather it proves the intensity of it. Only love dares to refine what it does not want to lose. When God prepares a soul for something greater, he rarely uses comfort to do it. Comfort may calm us, but it rarely changes us. It is in the furnace that gold is purified. It is in the dark soil that seeds awaken. It is in the belly of the storm that roots go deeper. And it is in the aching places of our lives that something eternal begins to emerge, something that comfort could never produce. Preparation is always hidden in the moment. We do not feel ourselves being made. We only feel ourselves being broken. The ground beneath us shifts, familiar things are taken, questions replace certainties, and we wonder if we are being undone. But perhaps the unraveling is the very thing required for us to become whole. Perhaps what feels like collapse is the prelude to clarity. Perhaps the pain is not the end of something, it is the beginning of something far more meaningful. We think God should rescue us from pain, and sometimes he does, but more often he redeems it. He allows us to walk through shadows so that we can learn to see differently. He doesn't always stop the storm, but he teaches us how to walk on water in the middle of it. His goal is not the preservation of our comfort, but the development of our character, because he knows that we are being prepared for something beyond this moment, beyond this pain, beyond even this life. We learn in pain what we cannot learn in ease. We learn the weight of truth, the depth of trust, the fire of perseverance. We learn to let go of what is temporary and cling to what is eternal. Pain forces us to confront illusions, to strip away distractions, to find out what we truly believe. It humbles us, softens us, and opens our eyes to the unseen world, the world that is more real than anything we can touch. God is not indifferent to our pain. He does not sit in distant silence while we suffer. He is closer in pain than in peace, nearer in the valley than on the mountaintop. He walks with us through fire, not to observe us, but to sustain us. His presence does not always change our circumstances, but it changes us within them. He does not always remove the thorn, but he gives us grace that is deeper than the wound. It is tempting to believe that pain disqualifies us, that brokenness is a sign that we are no longer usable. But in the economy of God, brokenness is often the very thing that qualifies us. He chooses those who have been crushed, because they carry a fragrance that only brokenness can release. He lifts those who have fallen because they know how to kneel. He calls those who have suffered because their compassion has been born in fire. The world may see your scars and call you wounded, but heaven sees them and calls you ready. There is a wisdom that only grows in the soil of sorrow. There is a strength that only rises after we have wept. There is a holiness that only forms when everything else has been stripped away. Pain does not mean you are far from God. It may mean He is closer than ever, preparing you for what you cannot yet carry, molding you for a purpose you cannot yet imagine, shaping you into a vessel strong enough to hold what is coming. We live in a world that equates movement with progress and speed with success. To wait feels like failure. To pause feels like punishment. We are taught to measure life in rapid results, instant gratification, and visible advancement. But heaven teaches a different lesson, one written slowly in silence over time. It is the hidden curriculum of delay. God rarely works within the timelines we draw for Him. We cry out for change, for answers, for fulfillment, and yet He lingers, not because He delights in withholding, but because He is weaving something far deeper than our momentary relief. The delay is not random, it is rich with instruction. It is not a denial of destiny, it is the preparation for it. There is a kind of learning that cannot happen in motion. It requires stillness, discomfort, and time. It demands the patience to sit in questions that don't resolve, to remain faithful when results are invisible, to believe when belief costs you everything. This is the classroom of delay. It doesn't come with a syllabus or a clear timeline, but it teaches with precision. Every day you wait, something is being formed in you that haste could never produce. Delay exposes the depth of your desires. It tests whether you seek God or merely what He can give. In the silence, your motives are refined. The promises you once clung to for comfort are stripped of selfish ambition, and what remains is hunger for something more sacred. Delay turns the spotlight inward. It reveals the impatience, the idols, the illusions of control we carry. It brings us to the end of ourselves so we might finally be ready to begin with Him. In the hidden curriculum of delay, faith is no longer a theory, it becomes a practice. Hope is no longer a feeling, it becomes a discipline. Trust is no longer something we say, it becomes something we live moment by moment when nothing else makes sense. Waiting transforms passive belief into active surrender. It teaches the soul to kneel in places it once demanded to run. God often hides the outcome because He is more interested in shaping the character than providing the conclusion. Delay is His tool to make space within a space for wisdom, humility, endurance. Without delay, we would rush into the future unprepared, unequipped, and unchanged. Delay slows us down not to torment us, but to strengthen us. It breaks our timeline so that we might align with His. Moses waited 40 years in the wilderness before his true calling began. Joseph waited in prison before standing in the palace. David waited with a crown in prophecy, but a cave as his home. Even Christ waited in silence for 30 years before His public ministry began. If heaven does not rush even its greatest stories, why do we demand speed as proof of purpose? Delay is not the absence of progress, it is the refinement of it. Something is always happening beneath the surface. Like seeds buried in soil, we do not see the roots growing downward before the stalk ever emerges upward. The dark seasons, the silent years, the unanswered prayers, these are not voids, but wombs. Life is being nurtured where eyes cannot see and hands cannot touch. The hidden places are the holiest places. We resist delay because we believe the lie that waiting equals wasting. But in God's design, nothing surrendered is ever lost. Time in His hands is never idle, it is intentional. He holds all things together, even the things that feel like they're falling apart. Especially the things that feel like they're falling apart. Delay teaches us that fulfillment is not the goal, faithfulness is. We were not made to chase the finish line. We were made to walk with the One who draws the path beneath our feet. There is a slow and sacred shaping that happens in delay, the kind of wisdom that does not come from answered prayers but from unanswered ones, the kind of maturity that is not produced in noise but in quiet, the kind of strength that is not built by lifting success but by carrying uncertainty. Delay is not the absence of God's work, it is the proof of it. He is not slow, he is thorough. He is not withholding, he is preparing. He is not far off, he is closer than ever, instructing the soul through a curriculum too deep for sight, but not too deep for trust. There are moments when life folds in on itself, when the lights go dim and familiar voices fade, when the rhythm you relied on collapses into silence. Everything that once felt secure becomes scattered. You begin to question if you've been cast aside, forgotten, covered over. It feels like burial, like something is over, like you've been hidden, sealed away in a season too deep to escape. But what feels like burial is often something more sacred, more intentional, more alive than you dare to imagine. You are not being buried, you are being planted. Burial and planting feel the same at first. Both involve being placed in darkness. Both mean being covered in soil. Both imply a season of invisibility. But one is an ending. The other is a beginning. One is final. The other is foundational. And the difference, though hidden to the eye, lies in the intention of the one doing the digging. When God presses you into dark soil, it is not to silence you, it is to awaken you. He is planting something in you that cannot grow in the light just yet. Growth begins in obscurity. The seed, though small, holds within it a promise far greater than its size, but that promise cannot be forced into existence. It must be buried first, hidden beneath layers of pressure, beneath the weight of waiting, beneath the heaviness of not being seen or understood. The soil becomes both shelter and struggle. It presses against the seed, cracks it open, and begins the slow miracle of transformation. There is no sunlight in that stage, no applause, no clarity, only darkness and unseen progress. The seed never knows the moment it begins to change. It only knows it can no longer remain what it once was. And so it breaks not because it has failed, but because it has finally surrendered. The shell that once protected it becomes too tight, and the breaking becomes the birthplace of new life. That fracture is holy, that splitting is sacred, that pain is not destruction, it is divine preparation. God does not plant you in darkness to punish you. He places you there to protect the tender beginnings of what He is growing in you. Some roots must be anchored before they ever appear. Some strength must be forged in hidden places before it can withstand the weight of visibility. You want to be seen, but God wants you to be strong. You want a rival, but He's building endurance. You want clarity, but He's cultivating faith. The silence of the soil is not emptiness, it is instruction. It teaches you to trust what you cannot see, to believe when you do not feel, to wait when every part of you longs to run. It trains your soul in stillness. It builds resilience not through answers, but through presence, the kind that stays with you, even when all your familiar markers are gone. And in time, though you cannot predict the hour, the surface begins to tremble. The shoot emerges. Life that was once hidden begins to rise. What was growing down and deep now grows up and outward. And still the roots must remain. Because what is planted must remain anchored even when it blossoms. People may only see the moment you break through, but heaven rejoices in the moments no one saw, the ones when you kept believing in silence. When you kept praying in the dark, when you didn't give up though you had every reason to. The soil shaped you. The stillness trained you. The pressure transformed you. You were not left behind. You were set apart. You were not forgotten. You were being formed. You were not buried. You were planted deep in grace, hidden in hope, surrounded by purpose. Everything you thought was working against you was actually working within you. Not to end your story, but to begin the chapter only planted things can write. It is a strange thing how disappointment seems to visit uninvited, often when we least expect it and most desire something good. It creeps in through closed doors, failed plans, fractured hopes, and moments that don't unfold the way we had so carefully imagined. We brace ourselves for a future we thought we understood, only to be met by a detour we never asked for. The heart sags beneath the weight of things lost, opportunities missed, prayers seemingly unanswered. And yet, if we could peel back the veil that separates the seen from the unseen, we might discover that what feels like rejection is not rejection at all. It is redirection. What appears to be a dead end may be the threshold of a holy detour. Because divine appointments often come dressed as disappointments. There is a craftsmanship in heaven that does not always translate well on earth. God's movements often defy our logic, and his pathways rarely follow the maps we've drawn. We chart straight lines, he leads through deserts. We ask for blessings, he sends burdens that carry blessings hidden within them. We pray for open doors, and he answers by shutting the ones that would have destroyed us. We ask for success, and he offers surrender. And when it all feels backward and broken, when the plan we were sure falls apart in our hands, we wonder if he is even listening. But heaven's silence is not absence, it is orchestration. There is a reordering happening in the invisible. What we call failure, God may be calling favor. What we name loss, he calls pruning. The things we try to hold on to, relationships, roles, outcomes, timing, he often loosens, not to leave us empty, but to make room for what is truly aligned with his purposes. Sometimes the delay is mercy. Sometimes the heartbreak is protection. Sometimes the closed path is the clearest direction we will ever receive. There are threads being woven we cannot see. The job you didn't get, the person who walked away. The door that didn't open, these may be the very things that are preparing you for a divine intersection. But it rarely feels that way in the moment. Disappointment feels like the ground shifting under your feet. It brings a kind of silence that feels like forgetting, yet heaven remembers what you've forgotten about yourself. Heaven remembers that some paths are too small for the calling placed on your life. Heaven remembers that what is good is not always what is God. Heaven knows that what breaks your heart today may build your soul for what is coming tomorrow. If we could glimpse the heavenly blueprint behind our interruptions, we might stop calling them interruptions at all. We would see the detours as design, the disappointments as doors disguised. We would begin to understand that God is not in the business of crushing dreams for sport, but of resurrecting them with stronger roots and purer intentions. Often the dream has to die in our hands before it can live by his breath. The moments we resist the most may be the ones that carry the most sacred weight. God does not always arrive in triumph. Sometimes he comes wrapped in what we tried to avoid. Sometimes his yes looks like a no. Sometimes his leading feels like loss, but the truth is not always in the feeling. It is in the unfolding. To walk by faith is to accept that you will not always understand in real time. It is to believe that what broke you might actually be what built you. It is to see every disappointment as a potential meeting place between your weakness and his wisdom, and to realize that every closed chapter was not an erasure of purpose, but the clearing of space for divine appointment. We often expect God to show up in ways that fit our narrative, our preferences, our plans, but he often shows up through interruptions that frustrate us before they transform us. You thought the setback was a signal to stop, but it may be the signal that he's near. You thought the silence was abandonment, but it may be the sound of holy rearrangement. You thought it ended, but it may have just begun. What you call disappointment may very well be the doorway of destiny, disguised for a season, hidden in plain sight. There is a quiet ache that lives beneath the surface of so many lives. It isn't loud or always visible, but it's there settled like dust in the corners of the soul. It is the ache of knowing you were made for something more, but not yet seeing it. The tension of living in a moment that feels too small for the weight of the calling within you. You move through the hours, fulfill your duties, keep pace with the world around you, and yet something inside whispers, this isn't all there is. You were made for more than this moment. That whisper isn't arrogance. It's not ambition clothed in spirituality. It's not dissatisfaction in disguise. It is evidence that you carry eternity in your bones. That deep within you is a blueprint not written by human hands, a divine signature etched into the unseen places of your soul. The longing for more is not a flaw, it is a compass. It is not greed, it is guidance. It is the inner witness that you were never meant to shrink yourself to fit a moment that cannot hold the whole of who you are becoming. The moment you're in now, whether filled with joy or weighed by hardship, is not your final form. It's a page, not the whole book. But we so easily confuse the scene with the story. We mistake today's challenge for tomorrow's conclusion. We let the temporary convince us that it is all there will ever be. But God never writes with only one chapter in mind. He is the author who sees the end from the beginning, and when He formed you, He owned your present limits. He saw what you would carry, who you would become, what you would rise from, and what you would overcome. You were not made to be defined by delay. You were not made to be measured by failure. You were not made to be named by others who cannot see what is hidden in your soul. The world may try to compress you into moments that don't reflect your purpose. You may find yourself in seasons that feel too quiet, too slow, too fruitless. But the slow season is not a lost one. God often does His deepest work in the moments we would rather skip. In the unseen, He is planting things too sacred to rush. Identity, strength, patience, discernment, endurance, these are not learned on the mountaintop. They are forged in the valley, shaped in the silence, formed in the furnace of waiting. And it is in these places that the soul becomes large enough to carry the very more it longs for. The ache inside you is not a taunt, it is a tutor. It is there to remind you that this moment, however important, is not the end of your story. You are becoming, you are unfolding, you are being led layer by layer into a fuller version of who you were created to be. That version may not be seen by the world yet. It may not even be fully seen by you. But it is there beneath the surface. Every trial, every tear, every unseen act of faith is not wasted. It is watering something eternal. The deeper the roots, the greater the reach. And roots grow down before branches grow up. The pressure you feel right now might not be there to crush you, it might be there to shape you. The restlessness might not be something to silence, but something to listen to. It may be the sacred discomfort that alerts you to the gap between where you are and where you're meant to go. Not to shame you, but to stir you. Not to hurry you, but to prepare you. Heaven does not rush holy things. And you, dear soul, are a holy thing. There is more ahead than behind. There are words yet to be spoken, songs yet to be sung, lives yet to be touched by what only you carry. Your gifts were not given for survival, they were given for service. Your calling was not designed to fit comfortably within the confines of fear or familiarity. It was meant to stretch you, challenge you, awaken you. It was meant to lift you beyond the moment you're standing in now into the divine narrative written over your life before you ever took your fortier.